Bienvenue to Bonjour Paris Live. Enjoy this exclusive preview of Bonjour Paris Live with a full event for free. Become a Bonjour Paris member to gain access to our future live events and watch many more on demand on our video hub at bonjourparis.com/become-a-member. Merci et à très bientôt. Enjoy the video.
Bienvenue to Bonjour Paris Live. Our online event series, free for Bonjour Paris members, offers expert lectures, discovery talks, and conversations about la vie française. In between your trips to France, we're here to inspire you. Bonjour Paris has been online since 1995, almost as old as the internet itself. Our website is packed with interesting articles about the culture and history of Paris. And now, thanks to the support of our growing membership base, we're able to showcase new offerings like video and online talks. For details about all the benefits of Bonjour Paris membership, visit our membership page on our website. Enjoy today's presentation and à bientôt!
Hello, welcome everybody. Bonjour. Welcome. Thanks for joining us for another Bonjour Paris live event. Thank you for your support, particularly to Bonjour Paris members who make these bonus live events possible, such as this conversation today with Jeffrey Iverson, who is back. Some of you may have joined us for the wonderful Bonjour Paris live event about Rue de Nid. And by popular demand, he's back today, and I'm looking forward to it. Jeffrey Iverson is a graduate of NYU's Institute of French Studies and School of Journalism, and has called Paris home since the year 2000. His stories of maverick chefs, enlightened winemakers, and prolific artists have notably appeared in France Today, Time, Centurion, and Departures magazines, among others. And Jeffrey, of course, has been profiling the streets of Paris for France Today magazine, one of our sister publications, for the last 7 years. And France Media recently compiled the pick of all this work into the bookazine Rediscovered Paris, which is a coffee table quality special edition. We'll show you it in a bit. And it's the streets that define contemporary Paris, with photographs and interviews with, the local characters. So, Jeffrey, I'm so glad you can join us again today. Thank you for giving us your time.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for having me again.
How are you enjoying the cozier autumn days in Paris?
Oh, it's funny. There's not much of an autumn in Paris. It just goes straight into the Christmas season. It seems like they're already putting up the Christmas lights, and it's kind of strange as an American. Usually, there's a little restraint until Thanksgiving comes.
Until Thanksgiving, yes. And I was just mentioning, congratulations on the Discover Paris magazine. It's amazing. I have it right here, and it's a compilation of your work for France Today, and it has 28, if I'm not mistaken, 28 streets that you have interviewed all the shop owners, the main chefs, and the tastemakers in each street. And so congratulations, it looks amazing.
Thank you. It was very gratifying to see it come to all together into a single magazine.
I just leafed through it, but it is it's so much information. I can't imagine. I'll ask you later, but I can't imagine the amount of work that goes into that. So I just wanted to thank you again for your chat on Rue de Nid, because I went, as many of our participants will probably do. I had been to Rue de Nid before, and then you had your chat, and I learned so much about it. And then I went back, and it was so different to go back, and the experience is so much richer when you know a little bit of the history and the people and why each shop is where it is and how they work together. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm so glad.
So with that, I'll hand it over to you, and we'll come back for the Q&A at the end. All yours, Jeffrey.
Thank you. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. It's really a great pleasure for me to be able to take you on a tour of what are really some of the most iconic covered passageways in Paris. For me, the covered passageways of Paris are really among the most intriguing and atmospheric places in the city. Yet for a long time, they were mostly ignored by tourists and Parisians alike. I myself, I'd already lived in Paris for several years before I'd ever stepped foot in one. But once I did, I realized that they encapsulated so much of what I love about Paris. As a Francophile, I started out much like the Owen Wilson character in Woody Allen's Midnight in Paris, really obsessed with Hemingway and 1920s Paris. But once I discovered les passages, the covered passageways, these really pure creations of the 19th century, I realized that a lot of the ambiances and architecture that moved me the most in Paris are from the 1800s and the Belle Époque. Visiting the covered passageways of Paris today really transports you to that era. And now more than ever, because a decade or two ago, most of them were pretty sleepy, forgotten places. But today, as they're increasingly being reinvested by a new generation, they're really becoming the kind of busy, vibrant, attractive walkways that they were at their creation 200 years ago. My walk today is inspired by several of my articles for the Parisian Walkways column in France Today magazine. I wrote the first one of these in 2014, and since then I've profiled 35 different streets and passageways across the city. As a journalist, these have been some of my favorite articles to write. They give me a chance to indulge in all my passions for culture, sociology, and history of France, and also its food and wine. It was Guy Hibbert, the founder of France Media Group, who came up with the idea for Parisian Walkways. The name is a nod to a song by the old rocker Gary Moore, but the column was really inspired by something deeper. It's about that feeling you get as you wander down one of these old streets in Paris, the sense of all this forgotten history written in the cobblestones beneath your feet, and this strong desire to know even just a little bit of it. But Parisian Walkways is also a column about that curiosity that we have just when we see people who are still spending their days on these streets today, who make you wonder, what would it be like to work and to live on a Parisian walkway like this? Well, the covered passageways of the Grands Boulevards, or the big boulevards neighborhood, they are certainly among those walkways that fire up your imagination and curiosity. In fact, one of them, the Passage des Panoramas, was the subject of my very first Parisian Walkways column in 2013. Let me give you an idea of where it is. The Passage des Panoramas is situated on Paris's right bank It's right here. The Louvre is down here, and Opéra, or Palais Garnier and Opéra is right over here. And you can see it now, the outlines of it here. This is the passageway, and then these are its galleries or offshoots that are all also full of boutiques here. I wrote about Passage des Panoramas for France Today in 2013, but the first time I visited was actually in 2008. I was on assignment, on an assignment for Time magazine. And at the time, a rather sizable shift was taking place in French wine, which I'd go on to write quite a bit about. It was essentially a shift away from a very technological, chemical-reliant approach to winemaking, back towards a more ancient, traditional approach. And more winemakers were beginning to give up pesticides in the vineyard and chemicals in the cellar. They called it vin naturel, or natural wine. And it so happened that in the early 2000s, a handful of wine bars in Paris were really playing a huge part in popularizing these wines. So in 2008, I set out to write about them, and one of them was called Racines, and it had been opened a year before in the Passage des Panoramas. Racines, which means roots, was created by Pierre Joncoux, who's a unique figure in the French restaurant world. He's covered in tattoos, and he always looks like he just rolled out of bed, but he's a true aesthete. He loves produce, beautiful produce. He loves beautiful natural wines and beautiful architecture, especially the Belle Époque. By the age of 21, he'd already had 2 restaurants, and they were both in late 19th century buildings with ceiling frescoes and mosaics. So when he learned that a printing shop from 1860 was closing in Passage des Panoramas with its original mosaic floor and windows and wood facade, he jumped at the chance to create something that he'd always wanted to, which was a cave à manger, which is basically a wine bar that offers simple dishes, and simple but delicious in general dishes. By the time I'd finished my article, he'd already been awarded Best Cave à Manger in Paris by the next-gen restaurant guide, Le Fooding. And yet when Pierre first decided to open the Racines, many of his friends, and probably his banker, thought he was crazy to set up in this sleepy and slightly crumbling covered passageway. At the time, if you'd heard of Passage des Panoramas, it was not as a place for a meal, but as the place to come and buy a postage stamp, or a collectible postage stamp in any event, because it was probably because the proximity to the Paris Stock Exchange, La Bourse. But historically in this area, there's a whole number of trades like coin collectors and gold traders and philately, or stamp collecting. They had all set up in the same neighborhood over the years. Passage des Panoramas became the philately center of Paris in the 20th century. But the stock exchange closed at the end of the 1990s, and that drained thousands of jobs from this neighborhood and from the passageway as well, and really left Panoramas in a slump. Few businesses in the passageway really could make a living, besides the philatelists, which managed to continue to draw their very quiet but committed clientele. So just this context is interesting because you have to imagine what a jolt the arrival of Racines was then in 2007, because Passage de Panorama hadn't seen a flood of revelers and pleasure seekers like this in probably centuries. Look at the images that were caught by the wine blogger Bertrand Seltz during Racine's grand opening. This was the beginning of a transformation of Passage de Panorama, a transformation into a true foodie destination. By the time I returned here for France Today in 2013, multiple other restaurants had now opened up throughout the passageway. And Jean-Coup Pierre had already sold Racine's to another chef and opened a new restaurant in another Belle Epoque building nearby. The first restaurant opening to follow Racine's was also the most upscale. In 2009, the French restaurateur Guillaume Gage and the Japanese chef Shimichi Sato opened this very intimate, elegant restaurant called Passage 53. Sato had worked in some of France's top kitchens, from Pierre Gagnère to Hélène Darroze. And he decided to mix the fantastic French ingredients that he discovered with Japanese techniques to create some amazing dishes. And one of them was this dish called the assiette blanche, or the white plate, which was just squid and cauliflower. But in 3 years, Passage 53 earned 2 Michelin stars, which is a pretty astounding feat for a tiny 20-seat hole in the wall. Unfortunately, they were among the restaurants that didn't survive the pandemic last year. But Gage and Sato and the chef Sato created something more timely, probably, in place of the restaurant, a street food address called Le Ramen Bar, the Ramen Bar, which is essentially a Franco-Japanese noodle bar. This was actually their third establishment that they opened in the passageway, because a couple boutiques just over, they had also created the Gyoza Bar, where they brought authentic Japanese raviolis to Paris. And this place was once again a huge success, and they've actually gone on to open up other gyoza bars in Germany. They're planning to open more in New York and Miami now. Meanwhile, Passage de Panorama got another wine bar in 2010 at number 26 called Quanto Vino. It's kind of a more laid-back alternative to Racine's, with comforting, tasty cuisine, wood-fire pizzas, and really, truly extraordinary cheese and charcuterie plates. They have natural wines, but they also have this wonderful collection of very surprising Bordeaux wines from small, organically farmed states. No big Grand Crus that you would have heard of. So that's always a discovery with them. Well, there were other restaurants that had been there a while that were inspired by all this activity. Among them was the historic Bar des Variétés, which was established in 1930. They revamped their menu to specialize in gourmet hamburgers with toppings like camembert cheese and foie gras. And to be honest, they're probably my favorite burgers in Paris. And it's definitely my favorite place to eat a burger in Paris, whether at the little table out in the passageway or inside next to their bar, the old bar covered with pictures of French film stars. Next, in 2013, a very chic delicatessen was created in the passageway to celebrate the best of Spanish gastronomy at number 44. It was called Les Grands d'Espagne. Their 4-year aged Iberico ham literally melts in your mouth. The And the year they opened, their maestro cortador, their master ham slicer, Noé Bonillo Ramos, set out to break the Guinness World Record for the longest uninterrupted ham cutting session. And he did it here in the Passage de Panorama one day, slicing 92 kilos of ham over 33 hours nonstop. Les Grands d'Espagne was a great success, and they actually moved out of the shop, moved their shop to Rue des Martyrs, which is probably the most hip food street in Paris today. In its place, the Japanese coffee brand Arabica opened a Paris outlet here. But Grand d'Espagne is just another example of how Passage de Panorama has become a kind of laboratory and launching pad for new food concepts and young chefs. It's no wonder Vogue called it le nouvel hotspot food in Paris recently, for all these different chic and savory eateries that have popped up here in recent years, like the Mediterranean Cafe Adar, the beautiful Bistro Aster, the meat lovers paradise Lombem, and perhaps most especially Cafe Stern, which opened in 2014 at number 47 in a very famous former printing shop. In the 19th century, Stern was France's most famous engraver. They printed the wedding invitations and business cards and baptismal announcements and stationery for the European elite, from French presidents to Russian czars. And their leather walls and engraved wood interior are the same, have not been changed since 1834. Even after Stern closed and was transformed into what is probably the finest Italian restaurant in Paris. Stern is owned by the same brothers who run the 3-star Le Calandre in Italy and Ristorante Quadri in Venice. So they brought the art of Italian coffee and refined pasta to this most luxurious setting and created a sensation, drawing really the beau monde from all over Paris to Passage de Panorama. Needless to say, all this activity has not hurt the other shops in the passageway. There are artisans like Cosette Dion of the boutique Hemmingbird, who produces this beautiful paper crafts and origami jewelry. And there's also the great artisan jeweler Laurent Mesmer, who makes beautiful jewelry. The philately shops continue to quietly ply their trade, as they always have as well. Jean-Guillaume Garcia, who owns the oldest philately shop in the Passage, dating back to 1898, he told me that Panoramas was a much sadder place 30 years ago, and that he prefers it as it is today, so much more animated. He said, "We're returning to an ambiance much like it was in the 19th century." And I've been wondering now what exactly he meant by that, actually. I think what he means, first of all, is a place that's brimming with people, a place where people come to walk and to absorb a very special ambiance, become a place where people come to see curious and luxurious things, a place where people come to sit at intimate tables with their chérie, eating and drinking delicious things. And really that sounds quite a bit like the Passage de Panorama that Émile Zola described in 1879 in his novel Nana, about an actress and a courtesan who worked in the theater next door to Passage de Panorama. This is Émile Zola talking about Nana. She adored the Passage du Panorama. It was a passion she had had from her youth for the glittering world of Paris, the false jewels, the gilded counters, the faux leather. She could not tear herself away from the shop windows, staring dreamily at the sweets in the confectioners, listening to the barrel organ in the shop next door, captivated by the tawdry trinkets, the little cockleshell vanity boxes, the miniature Vendôme columns and obelisks. Zola's novel, which is essentially about an aristocrat in love with a prostitute, was naturally pretty scandalous when it came out. But these were the kind of relationships that became possible thanks to covered passageways. It's hard to overstate what a revolution the Passage du Panorama was for French society. Several books have been written describing the massive social and economic changes that the passageways represented. When Panoramas was inaugurated in 1799, Napoleon had just returned to Paris from his triumph in Egypt, where he'd ordered studies of Cairo's great covered souks and bazaars. And then at the same time, nearby in Palais-Royal, an early version of the covered passageway was already proving successful for about a decade at that point. Philippe d'Orléans, the Duke of Chartres, had built a temporary structure out of wood to create a kind of market of pleasures for the upper classes. It was located at Palais-Royal, so right near the Louvre, over the open space where you find the Buren columns today. Now, if we move up to 1799, the inauguration of Passage du Panorama, this is now 10 years after the Revolution, and nobles all over France have lost their fortunes, and mansions across Paris are being sold and transformed. And the Hôtel de Montmorency, which was situated on the Boulevard Montmartre, was one such mansion, and it would be transformed into what became the very first covered passageway in Paris, Passage du Panorama. At the turn of the 19th century, Paris was still a city without sidewalks, where the streets were not only dirty, but dangerous. So when Passage du Panorama was created, suddenly you had this 133 meter long, boutique-lined covered passageway where gentlemen and ladies could step out of their carriages and perambulate in their finest clothes. It was free of rain and mud, yet flooded with light, thanks to the glass roof during the day. And as soon as 1817, Panoramas was lit up at night as well, after Philippe Le Bon installed the first public gas lighting in mainland Europe. This is just one of many reasons the passageway was heralded as among the most avant-garde places in Paris, if not Europe. Zola was entranced by the experience of walking through the Passage des Panoramas at night. He wrote, beneath the whitish reflections from the glass roof, the passage was ablaze with lights that poured down from the white globes, red lanterns, blue transparencies, while banks of high gas jets picked out gigantic watches and fans in their flares. The gaudy shop windows, the gold of the jewelers, the crystals of the confectioners, the light-colored silks of the fashion shops behind the pure plate glass glittered in the glare of the reflectors. If you peek in the stamp shop at number 11, Garcia Philately, you can actually catch a glimpse of the passageway's last remaining gaslight. And in Nana, when Zola's characters swoon over the scents of vanilla rising from the cellar of a chocolate maker, he's talking about the Chocolatier Marquis, which was located in the 19th century at number 57, where you now find this trendy restaurant called Canard et Champagne, Duck and Champagne. The 19th century wood decor and paintings of exotic spices have been all entirely preserved and make for a breathtaking setting to sip champagne for sure. I think Zola probably would have approved. One place where we know Zola spent a great deal of time and perhaps even wrote some of his novels is at number 55. Today, the upscale philately shop, La Postale. In the 1800s, this was a reading room, which was a kind of 19th century public library and co-working space. And it has this majestic double staircase inside, which was climbed by naturalist writers like Zola and Honoré Balzac countless times for sure. Zola and Balzac came to the passageways for the human spectacle that played out there, as these places where new social freedoms and libertine lifestyles flourished in the 19th century, where different classes and sexes were suddenly mingling in ways never seen before. But it was a more traditional kind of spectacle that gave Passage des Panoramas its name and helped make it one of the most visited places in Paris for decades. The passageway's name comes from an attraction installed above its main entryway in 1800, which was composed of two rotundas in which 360-degree paintings presented panoramic views of urban landscapes like Paris and Rome. So you'd step inside and you'd be surrounded by all of Paris or surrounded by Rome. They were created by the American inventor and engineer Robert Fulton, who had come to France to try to get work with the new emperor, Napoleon. And I guess while he was biding his time to get an audience, he apparently came up with this show, which ended up then making him rich. Eventually, the fad for these panoramas passed and they were dissembled. But another spectacle would become forever associated with Passage des Panoramas and its most riotous years. And it's the building you see here to the left of the Passage with the columns. That's the Théâtre des Variétés, which is a 900-seat Italian-style beautiful theater, which opened in 1807 at 7 Boulevard Montmartre. The operettas that were performed here, like Jacques Offenbach's La Belle Hélène in 1865, were wildly popular and helped make the passageways of the Grands Boulevards really the place to be during the Belle Époque. The theater's artist's entrance is still found in the Passage des Panoramas, and this is the exact spot where Zola's Comte Muffat is. The Count comes to wait for Nana after her shows. So spectacles, shops, novelties, these are the things that Parisians had come to expect to find on the Grand Boulevard in the 19th century. So here again is Passage des Panoramas today, located between Rue Richelieu and Rue Montmartre, and sitting on the Boulevard Montmartre. You'll see this corner here corresponds to this corner right here, which is, I'm sorry, just one moment. What we're looking at here is the former wall of Louis XIII, which which on this map, which is from 1705, has just within that year been knocked down. And so you have this wide space all surrounding Paris, what was then the edge of Paris. And so the wide avenues of the Grands Boulevards were laid out exactly along this old wall. And there was a lot of real estate that was ready to be filled up, and it became lined with cafes and luxury hotels and a whole slew of attractions, and it really made these Grands Boulevards kind of the crossroads for Paris's beau monde in that era. It was also a natural place for the first covered passageway then to be created in 1799 here with Passage des Panoramas. And 47 years later, it was still a natural place to create another passageway, which is Passage Jouffroy right here, and its little sister passageway, Passage Verdot, which continues right here. Dozens of passageways were actually created during this first half of the 19th century. It said you could walk on a rainy day for more than a kilometer from Palais-Royal all the way up to the Grands Boulevards and hardly get wet. It was the golden age of the Parisian covered passageway, and Passage Jouffroy really represented the zenith of that golden age in terms of its size and architectural complexity and its popularity. The Count Félix de Jouffroy-Gonson and his fellow investors inaugurated Passage Jouffroy and Passage Verdot in 1847. Passage Jouffroy, so as you saw, followed both the elder arcade's axis and also its recipe for success, bringing both beauty, attractions, and technological revolutions. Notably, as the first arcade built entirely of iron and glass, with only the decorative elements in wood. The iron frame allowed for the creation of a vast rounded glass roof to flood the space with natural light, and this was topped with a second V-shaped glass roof, which protected the former roof and also allowed for ventilation, which was a necessity because Jouffroy was the first covered passage with gas heating installed in its floors. So you could say that they perfected the formula with Jouffroy, really offering visitors an enchanting, comfortable setting filled with shops and entertainment, from cafe theaters to luxurious food and clothing shops, tailors, hairdressers, glove makers, a dance hall, a puppet theater. But the institution which would really remain Jouffroy's biggest attraction opened in 1882, the Musée Grévin. Through the years, Grévin's beautiful halls and theaters would present innovations from the world's fairs, like filament light bulbs and X-rays, and even the projection of the world's first animated film. But its claim to fame is its wax museum, which was created by this newspaperman Arthur Mayer and the caricaturist Alfred Grévin. The museum allowed the public in the pre-photography era to see the figures that they'd read about in newspapers and in French history. So people ran here to see things like the reconstruction of the 1793 murder of the revolutionary figure Jean-Paul Marat, complete with Marat's actual bathtub. Grévin is strange and fascinating place, and remains, I think, kind of an engrossing window into our cult of celebrity and the kind of figures that have captured the public fascination through the centuries. Needless to say, the Parisian public really flocked to Passage Jouffroy from day one. When the 19th century Paris city guide described Jouffroy as a passageway so awash with crowds of flaneurs that each day from 4 in the afternoon, one needs to use one's elbows vigorously to make one's way through the throng, who move like thick shoals of herrings in the channel. The passageway's charming Hôtel Chopin was founded in this era. And it's a reminder of the period when the Polish pianist was living in this neighborhood and falling in love with Paris and with Georges Sand, of course. Hôtel Chopin is a place for romantics. It's among the city's oldest hotels, and it's the only one built inside an arcade. The hotel has no lock on the front door because it's never been closed since 1846. It's completely sheltered from the street noise, even though it's right in the heart of the city. And it has all its views are over the Paris rooftops and over the top of Passage Jouffroy itself. Hôtel Chopin is definitely where I'd want to stay if I was a tourist. And if I enjoyed Christmas shopping more, which I don't necessarily, but if I did, I'd definitely want to go down the passageway to visit the Maison du Roi at number 24. This boutique is a marvel. It was founded by a pair of antique dealers with a huge love for the 18th century. And you'll find all these antiques and also new creations from artisans in Austria, in Italy, in India, all presented throughout a 2-floor boutique that really transports you into this Baroque universe. For another transporting experience, you can walk just across the passageway to Pain d'Épices. This is a dream boutique for children and for the young at heart in general. It has all these traditional wood and tin toys and puppets, but especially it has this entire world of doll houses and all the miniature figures and objects that fill them. So from garden tools and croquet sets to rotisserie chickens and croissants, it's amazing. If you find yourself salivating before this cornucopia of miniature delights, you'll want to walk over and have some real pastries at the wonderful tea room and pastry shop, Le Valentin. This salon de thé is a great secret for pastry lovers in Paris. It's a charming place for breakfast and lunch, or just a pastry and some fine tea, and you can just sit there and watch the world pass by through the windows, overlooking the passageway. You can then walk off your meal with a visit of the bookstalls of the Librairie du Passage, this bookstore that was founded in 1850, which has these beautiful art books and lithographs on display. But to discover probably the most vibrant symbol of the golden age of the passageways, you'll want to visit number 34, which is the phenomenal cane and umbrella shop, Galerie Fayet. The boutique's Franco-Japanese director, Ako Sato, is very knowledgeable and is very proud to defend this this quintessential symbol of the Belle Époque, the cane. The boutique offers both very refined modern canes from the last manufacturer in France, but also this amazing array of antique canes. Many of them hide secrets in, of course, the hidden swords and daggers, which you expect, but also totally unexpected things like a cane originally made for loyalists of Napoleon after he was taken out of power. And you would show your loyalty to Napoleon by casting the shadow of the cane, and then you would see Napoleon's profile in the shadow. One of Sato's favorite antique canes is this mysterious woman's cane painted in green from the 1800s. And if you unscrew the top, it reveals this concealed manicure set, complete with lip rouge and even a little perfume bottle. Of course, not all the passageways addresses are quite so transporting. And when the Passage Jouffroy's import shop, Palais-Royal, closed its doors in 2016 after 76 years, the giant British retailer Marks and Spencer snapped up the 800 meter squared space to open up a food market. That is a pretty sizable chunk of a passageway that is, supposed to be a historic monument after all. And it's true that many business owners in the passageway found this kind of incursion of a big brand to be a worrisome development. And it might be one that continues now, now that the real estate arm of the French aircraft manufacturer Dassault has acquired Passage Jouffroy. And, they want to make a profit. And rumors are that Dassault is trying to raise the rents, and they might raise them too high for these smaller independent businesses to be able to afford them. Anyway, that's the fear. And it is a bit of a conundrum, raises this question, does the economic survival of France's precious 19th century passageways have to be at the expense of their identity,
That is so interesting, Jeffrey, because we have a question from David Kagan that says, who maintains the passages? The city of Paris or a business association of merchants in the passage?
Mm-hmm.
Or, as you said, they may be privately owned?
Right. Well, this is really interesting, and it's why the differences between the passageways are also flagrant. They are privately owned. I'm not aware of any of them being owned by the city. But Passage de Panoramas is owned by multiple different property owners. And it's the reason why you have this real hodgepodge of decors, because each owner is in charge of their little piece of the floor and their little piece of the roof. And so you actually see that the floor is different in every 10 meters in Passage de Panoramas, whereas in Passage Jouffroy, which is entirely owned by one big company, you have a much more uniform decor. The floor has been redone. So that the question of whether or not you have a single owner or multiple owners has been really played out in the kind of ambiances that you'll find today in the different passageways. So this question of, can one of these passageways survive, and still retain its retain its identity? And I believe they can. And you just have to look at Jouffroy's little adjoining passageway, the Passage d'eau, which is, just right across, it's up here, right across this little street called Rue de la Grange Batelière. It's this little chunk right here. The Passage d'eau actually almost went under in the late 1970s, but today it is really flourishing, and it's done so by renewing the tradition of the arts and letters that defined Verdot since its creation in the 19th century. It's a wonderful place to visit antiquarian bookstores, and to browse through shelves and bins to find an old copy of a French classic. And today, Passage Verdot is the heart of the Quartier Art Drouot, which is the name for this neighborhood, which is filled with art galleries and art experts that are all kind of gravitating around the historic Hôtel Drouot art auction house, which is located just 100 meters from Passage Verdot and opened there in 1852. This tiny passageway's strong artistic identity has been revived by the arrival of an artisan framing shop, numerous art galleries and antique dealers, who all of them together are, now drawing art lovers from all over the city. It's really the most calming of passageways. It's busy, but the art lovers are maybe a little quieter than the food lovers, and people can't help but slow down and they gaze through the windows and they visit the galleries, and inevitably they do end up sitting down at the little bistro, the Bistrot du Passage, and to enjoy some of their very nice hearty French cuisine, or just to sip a glass of wine while the bistro's cat frolics beneath the tables. When I see all these people, I have to wonder, in a city with huge shopping malls and wide commercial streets, why do these people shop here? In a city with innumerable restaurants and spacious outdoor brasserie terraces, why do people willingly, intentionally cram themselves around a little table in a narrow passageway like Passage Verdot or Jouffroy or Panoramas? I guess the only answer is it's because of the way these places make us feel. There is an ambiance that we find here that's like nowhere else in the world. It's an ambiance that transports us temporarily away from our daily lives. People will happily traverse Paris to pack into passageways like Panoramas and Jouffroy and Verdot, to walk them, immerse themselves in them. They lose themselves in their thoughts, pondering the centuries of feet that have walked these same cracked and haphazard marble and mosaic floors. When we gaze at the old clocks above us, somehow instead of being drawn back into the present, we're transported further into the past. It's a magic that seems to be built into the very architecture of these places. Or perhaps it's something else entirely. In any event, Paris lovers have been trying to put their fingers on it for centuries. all the way back in 1867, Alfred Delvaux, the author of the city guide Les Plaisirs de Paris, he was already trying to comprehend for himself exactly what attracts us to these covered passageways. Why so many people? He asked. It's a place for rendezvous and promenades, a place we look forward to. And once strolling there, we forget all our worries. Well, thank you everyone for joining me on this walk today. I hope it's helped you to forget your worries as well.
Thank you. And it's amazing how easy it would be to miss one of these passages when you're walking by.
Absolutely.
And it's such, each one is an entire world unto itself. And talk about the mystery and the history. We have a question from Brandon Becker. If you're familiar with the Arcades project, and also Sandy Flitterman Lewis also asked, are you familiar with Walter Benjamin's writing on the passages? If so, can you say a word? So I believe that that is referring also to the Arcades project. Are you familiar with that at all?
I am familiar. I've not read it yet. No, but I've heard about it. That kind of there was this revival of interest in the passageways that started really with the surrealists in the early 20th century, when a lot of these passageways were in horrible condition and were really threatened with being demolished. And actually, the headquarters of the surrealists was Passage de l'Opéra, and it was demolished. And they liked, the rest of the artists were down in Montparnasse. That was the hip place to be at that point. But they all went up onto the right bank and loved these. And I know Walter Benjamin, he's kind of an extension of that passion for that renewed passion for the passageways that began with the surrealists.
Yeah, it's amazing that it's fantastic that they're experiencing a revival and that they've drawn attention for centuries now. So, well, thank you again, Jeffrey. We've gone a little bit over, but I think our participants are all delighted because we have great comments and everybody's saying, thank you so much, very enjoyable. Patricia Irwin is asking, is there a good book on all the passages of Paris that you could recommend?
Not in English. No, I don't know a good one in English, but but the two, if you can see the presentation, watch this presentation again when you get the link. Check out those two titles that I put up on the screen. Those are both very rich. And also a number of my articles about the covered passageways are in Discover Paris as well.
Yes. And of course, other streets, but I highly recommend Discover Paris, now available on our website, bonjourparis.com. So thanks again, Jeffrey. That was a wonderful hour. Thank you very much. And thank you for all who participated today. And just a little reminder that our December events are already available to sign up. On Wednesday, December 1st, Amy Cupet-Larue will be presenting the Hidden Edens of Paris. So all the parks, squares, gardens, and little hidden corners of beauty that make up the fabric of the city with little secret spots. And on Sunday, December 12th, Eloise Brion will be presenting, she will be in conversation with us. Eloise is raised in France and the US, started in the fashion industry and then created Miss Maggie's Kitchen, where she shares her blend of recipes and lifestyle and also tips for entertaining French style. So just in time for the holidays and hosting our holiday get-togethers. So thank you very much, everybody again. Thank you, Jeffrey. And we wanted to wish you all in advance a very happy Thanksgiving, and we'll hope to see you here back again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye, Jeffrey.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Register now for our next event, The Spirit of Rue Dauphine, with Jeffrey T. Iverson. On Sunday, January 22nd, veteran Paris writer Jeffrey T. Iverson takes us on a tour of one of the most characterful streets of the left bank, the place where Paris was reborn after World War II in an outpouring of jazz clubs, galleries, bookshops, and cafes. Between Boulevard Saint-Germain and the Pont Neuf, Rue Dauphine is an historic walkway trodden by everyone from Henry IV to Hemingway to Miles Davis, where today a band of booksellers, gallerists, musicians, and shop owners are keeping alive the spirit of Saint-Germain-des-Prés.